Welcome to this new episode of Marlborough Junior Reporters, the first of Season 2. Today our guest is Scott Stronghawk. Thank you for being here, Scott.
Kudabadamish.
Yes. My first question for you is, so your tagline, capture the moment, share the experience. Now, how did that come to you, and what does it mean to you?
Okay. Na Tishwish, Scott, Kwan Union Medikishu, Foster. Na Kishkog, Toad, Kwan. And I said that my name is Scott Stronghawk Foster, and it's good to be here with you.
Yeah.
The tagline that you referred to, essentially it's like this: capture the moment. So in photography, you're out there to capture moments in time, fleeting moments that may never happen again in the same way. And then once you capture that moment as a photographer, you share it. Or the person that you're taking, or the image that you're taking of, you can share that, or they can share it with their family. So you're sharing it. So they too can experience what you experienced.
Yeah, that. Oliver, would you like to ask a question?
Sure. So, Scott.
Yes.
What types of things do you usually draw inspiration from for your photography?
That's a good question. It's a lot of things. I've been taking picture. I was like designated as the family photographer back when I was your age.
Really?
So when we had family gatherings, I was always like, Scott, take the picture. But it was because I liked to do that. I volunteered. Back in the day when there were Polaroids. So I'm not sure if you know what a Polaroid camera is. Okay. But I've been taking pictures since then, and it just evolved from taking pictures of family members and events so that we could share the experience later on in our lives and look back. And then it evolved into when I went to school. I took pictures in college, and then I took a photography course back when they were film, and it's no longer film, it's digital. So I learned that experience, and then it evolved into me taking pictures of landscapes and insects. In my first, what I call a bridge camera, which is not a point and shoot, but it's like a between a point and shoot and some folks say a real camera, a semi-professional. So because I had a point and shoot, I took a lot of pictures of bugs and insects. So that's where I really started out doing, is taking insects, and I became known as the bug man in my camera club because I took a lot of pictures of bugs. That evolved into landscapes, and I was able to invest in a good camera. And then as time went on, I reconnected with my heritage, where I then began to take pictures of Native people, as some of the things that you can see here. And it became apparent to me that it was necessary. And I'll share a story with you. I was in the 10th grade. And at the time, I was living in West Virginia. And the teachers, and I'm not sure if you do the same now, I know that you go to different classes, but when I was growing up, everything was in the same classroom except for gym. And the teacher said, pull out your history book. So I pulled out my history book like everybody else, and we're sitting there, and teacher said, turn to page 354. So at that time, we were going over the Revolutionary War. So I opened up the book, and 354, the image that I saw was of a Native man or warrior because of the caption or the capture of the image. And he had a female settler with his hand wrapped around her hair and pulling it up by the turf. And I see the expression on your face. And in the other hand, he had a tomahawk. So he was getting ready to strike her, and she was pleading for her life. And in the background was a burning cabin. So that was the first image I saw in the textbooks, and I'm getting goosebumps right now, of Native people. And so weren't that of my classmates. That was how and what we were taught, that Native people were savages, were vindictive, were trying to kill settlers. But it was quite the contrary. So I think that in answering that question, where did my inspiration come from? I think it started back when I was in the 10th grade, and it evolved over time as I took pictures of bugs, family members, landscapes, to now where I evolved into taking pictures of Native people in the regalia. Because what I want to do, and what I am doing, is that I want to show young people like you, your teachers, politicians, government officials, educators, whoever is interested, to see how we looked in our traditional clothing. And one of the things that I was trying to break the paradigm with is that society, through pop culture, media, television, and theater, as well as motion picture, portrayed Native Americans. They romanticized them through movies like Dances with Wolves. So when society, again, it's imagery. Imagery is so powerful. That's why I'm glad that you folks are doing this now, because you can shape what people think, what they see, and their opinions by what you capture. So society then began to say, okay, well, if you don't look like an Indian from Dances with Wolves, and that was the name that was given to us by Christopher Columbus because he was lost, then you're not a Native American, because you don't dress like them, you don't look like them, you don't talk like them. So, and that's quite the contrary. And people were saying, well, there's no Native Americans in New England. They're extinct. Well, I'm here in proof to tell you that we're not extinct. Okay. So the images that I have, and I know it's a long-winded answer, but the images that I have here is of Eastern Woodland Native Americans. This is what our clothing looked like. Okay. And I tell folks that Floridians dress differently from people in Maine, who dress differently from people in California. It all depends on the region and where you live, what resources are available, whether it be animals. You know, in New England, we have, you know, owls and deer, elk, moose, bear, hawks. And out in the plains, they have buffalo and antelope and things like that. So the climate also dictates how you make your housing, you know, and what resources are available. We had weetus, which is a rounded shape, dome-like housing. And that was prevented from a lot of snow. So it's just like, it just slides off like an igloo. Where in the plains, you have teepees. So a lot of those things are significant. And when the European explorers came here, they didn't have cameras. They didn't have video cameras. They had people or sailors that said, oh, I'm an artist, I'll draw them. And then you can only imagine what those images look like. And it's a lot of times it's from memory, because we didn't sit around and let them draw us or anything like that. So a lot of times there was a lot of misrepresentation. With my camera, there's no misrepresentation. That's where I get my passion from, because I want to teach and show young people like yourselves what Native people traditionally dressed like, and to help you understand that we're not extinct, we're just like you. We're doctors, we're lawyers, we're engineers, we're educators, we're students, we're fathers, mothers, daughters, sons, garbage collectors, politicians. We do it all. I mean, we're just like you. It's just that we don't walk around dressed in our traditional clothing like this. So, and that's important. That's important to know. So that is my 20-minute commercial, 10-minute commercial on why. That's pretty much, that's my why I do what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've seen on your website that you obviously take pictures of a lot of the Native Americans and pictures of landscapes, but I noticed that you take pictures of like casual stuff like food and fruit and bugs and animals. So how often would you say that you like take photographs, and would you say that you carry your camera around with you a lot?
That's a very good question. On my website, I have different categories. My primary focus, I would say, over the last 4 years has been Native American people and their regalia, but also landscapes and birds of prey. In regards, I used to carry my camera all the time, but it got to a point where I was taking thousands of pictures. And when you take thousands of pictures with a digital camera, before when you had film camera, you were limited to the number of pictures you could take with the film. 12, 24, 36 was the max. So, and that became expensive because you had to buy the film. Digital technology is unbelievable because I can go out and take 1,000 images, look through with immediate gratification and delete the ones that I don't want, but then I may have 700. So then when I go home and I have to upload those to my computer, I have to look through every one of those. So when I became inundated with so many pictures, I was very selective of when I took my camera with me. But I'll tell you, I've missed some great shots because I didn't have it with me.
Yeah. Would you say that new film technology has changed the art of photography?
Oh, absolutely. What has really changed photography is the cell phone. And what it's done is it's impacted the professional camera person because you have a phone. I'm sure every one of you have a cell phone. Everyone's taking selfies. Everyone's capturing moments and sharing it, so to speak, on social media or with your friends. And it becomes immediate gratification. And then what happens is you may not pick up a professional camera. You may not. It's like you're satisfied with your cell phone. But the difference is that a person that shoots with a camera, you have so many more options. And you have zoom lenses, prime lenses, which is fixed, has clearer sharpness. So the evolution of technology has really impacted. Like I used to shoot in film. Now, like I mentioned to you before, digital cameras, I can shoot 1,000 images. There's sometimes, and some of my friends who I go out and shoot with, they chuckle because they say, okay, Scott, how many pictures did you take? And I usually take twice as many as everybody else. And I've just gotten into a habit where everything is changing so quickly, especially out in the woods when you're trying to get birds of prey or things like that. Or when I do in a Native American event where we're burning a mashoon, which is a traditional Native American canoe, there's smoke. So I may take 5 pictures of that same shot because the focal point may capture the smoke, then it may capture the subject, which is the mashoon. So I've gotten too accustomed to taking multiple images of the same image, which could be good, and it also can be, man, I got to go through all of these images.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you mentioned earlier, you want to educate people about Native American culture and heritage. What do you think are some good resources for people who want to educate themselves?
That's a very good question. You could start off by going to the library. I wish there was more subject matter in the classroom, but it's very limited. I don't know how it is now, but I kind of have an idea that it's probably just a fleeting moment. They don't really go over Native American history. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that is. Society wants to teach you what they want you to know. They want you to be good workers. They want you to work hard, obey, which are all good things. But in doing that, you lose sight of your dreams and you lose sight sometimes of the truth. And as I call history, it's called his story. So the subjugator, or the person that's in control and is oppressing a particular group of people, write the history. And it's not always 100% true. 9 times out of 10, it's not. They tell the story that they want to tell. They don't tell or speak to some of the things that have happened. So that's why you always have to, and I was mentioning to Zach, 50% of your education is learned in the classroom. The other 50% of your education in life is going out into the community, meeting people of different ethnicities, different religions, from different countries, so that way you can be well-rounded. And as I told my two sons, I have two sons, I say, listen, you have to leave your backyard in order to grow, in order to really understand who you are, what you've learned, and to learn about other people. And what I mean, when I use that as a metaphor, the backyard, I mean you have to leave your town, leave the city, leave the state, so that you can get that exposure. It's so important to be exposed to different things, and that's something that my dad taught me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, for my final question, I'd like to ask you, could you tell us a little bit about what you're wearing on your neck?
Yes. These are Native American made. The purple shell is wampum. It's a shell that is found on the East Coast in New England. So it's basically a New England shell, quahog shell. And Native people in New England used to make jewelry and ornaments for their traditional clothing and for trade. We didn't have money until, like the Europeans that came, they had money. We would trade or an exchange, but we didn't have what you would call money. So these used to take hours, and they would take a shell, break apart the different pieces where the purple is, and then they would have to hand polish that using tools. And you know how a shell is. It's very fragile. So if it breaks, you got to start all over. And it would take hours and hours and hours to do that. Now with modern tools, you can do things a little bit more quickly. So this is the purple shell is a quahog shell, and it's called wampum. Mm-hmm. And I was given this one here I was gifted this necklace here by two Native people where I did an exhibit at the Newton Art Center. They gifted me as a thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, as a new reporter, this being my first time, I was told to do a little research, so I did. I looked at your website, and I saw so many pictures of so many different animals. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, do you have a favorite one that, like, an animal that you want to take a photo of, a favorite of one that you have? Like, do you have a favorite?
That's a great question. I do. My native name is Stronghawk, and I love to take pictures of red-tailed hawks. This is a tail feather, and when I do things like this, I always bring a feather with me because I say it keeps me grounded. It reminds me of why I do what I do. So birds of prey are my favorite. Red-tailed hawks are my ultimate because that's my spirit animal.
That's great. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Scott.
How you doing, Josh?
Good. So my first question for you is, what is your inspiration for taking photos and what you take photos of?
My inspiration, that's a great question. I went into it a little bit before. I love taking pictures so that I can hold on to memories. And I began taking pictures at a very young age so that our family could hold on to memories. And then as time evolved, I began to specialize in certain subject matters. First it was family, then it became bugs as it grew and my experience evolved. I joined a camera club, which was one of the best things I could have done because I'm not formally trained in a classroom other than the one class I took. But the important thing in life, if you surround yourself with people, like-minded people, that's how you grow. So if you surround yourself with good people, you'll grow up to be a good person. If you surround yourself with people that are not so good, then, it's a coin flip, So from there, I evolved from bugs to when I was able to invest in better technology, it became landscapes and birds. And then ultimately, again, I evolved back to taking pictures of family. And it became the Native American pictures that I take now. And an interesting thing about the style, I have a black backdrop style. And it happened one day, I was out in the woods with my, at the time, my youngest son, who was 5 years old at the time. We're walking around the woods, and it was during the fall. And we were out collecting leaves. And he just so happened to have on a black sweatshirt. So at the end of the walk, it was out in Sudbury Loop Trail. At the end of the walk, I said, okay, he collected a lot of leaves. I said, okay, you only can take home 3. And I helped him pick out the most colorful ones. And then I said, okay, now hold them in your palms of your hand, which they took up practically everything. And I said, I'm going to take a picture. So I took a picture, and he held them close because it was just comfortable that way. And I told him, push it closer. And I took the picture. And then when I got home, I was like, I had an epiphany. I was like, oh my God, look at this. What happened was, because he had on a black sweatshirt, all I could see was his hands and the black. I mean, his hands, the black that surrounded it, and the beautiful leaves. If you go under my hands photography, you'll see a little boy's hands with 3 leaves. That's how it all started. 3 days later, my mother, I had her put on a regalia. She stood in front of the sliding glass door using natural light, and I took pictures of her that day. And I was like, man, you are so beautiful. This is unbelievable. As time evolved, I then started going to powwows and setting up because I wanted people to see what I saw that day. That's capturing that moment, sharing the experience. And now I'm here today. I just got finished exhibiting at the Boston City Hall Mayor's Office Gallery. Got an opportunity to meet Mayor Michelle Wu. Up in November, I'm going to be exhibiting at the Worcester Art Museum. So it's opened up a lot of doors because I think truly people are interested, and I think that's cool. I think that's so cool because that's the only way that you're going to foster inclusion, expand upon diversity, and to just open your mind to there's always a better way. When I used to work at IBM, they used to say, if there's always a better way, well, there is. So make sure you surround yourself with good people. Your friends are important.
My second question for you is,
sure.
When it comes to taking your photos outside, what is your favorite season for taking photos?
I would say the fall. And it's because of the color. It's just because of all the colors. And I'm interested to see whether or not this is going to be a good season because we had some rain, but there was a lot of hot weather. And 2 things happen. If it's too rainy, the leaves won't be bright. If it's too hot, the leaves dry up too quickly. It's got to be a perfect balance. And when it's a perfect balance, I get up at 4:30, in the morning. And I head out with 2 of my photography buddies, Nick and Terry. And we drive up to the Kangamangas Highway up in New Hampshire. We go to Maine. We go everywhere. And in search of that, I call it the money shot, that perfect shot. And I'm hoping this season will be a good one. But I'm not sure, though, because the leaves started changing quickly, and they're already starting to dry out because it's been very hot and dry. So we'll see.
And my last question for you is, what is your advice to anyone watching at home, young people, or even some older people who want to start getting into photography?
Photography? That's a great question. And what I would recommend is if you have an interest in photography, I personally, what helped me a great deal, I had the interest, I had the passion, but I joined a camera club. Again, surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And what that does for you as a photographer or a junior photographer or entry-level photographer, you learn from other people that have been doing it for years. And you can ask those types of questions. Well, what is the favorite time? What is the best time of year to take pictures if you want to do landscapes, and why? You can ask those types of questions because they've been doing it for years. And they also know different techniques. So that way, as you walk your photography journey, it's a resource. It's like going into a library. It's just that they talk to you, you know? You can also look things up on YouTube in terms of techniques and things that you could do, because there's a lot of information out there. So that's what I would do. And I would invest in a decent camera. Cell phones are great, but they're limited.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna. It's so nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
My first question is, when you take a photo of something, do you make sure it has a backstory to it, like the photo of your mom and the photo of your son, with where the person that's viewing your photo, are they wondering who or what their story is?
That is an awesome question, and I'll tell you why. With photography, it's open, in all art, it's open for interpretation. So depending upon what you shoot, depends upon when you see it for the first time, what emotions are provoked or that come out or you feel looking at that picture. Because everybody's going to look at that image differently. They're going to see different things. One of the reasons why I love the black backdrop, or I gravitated to it, when I took that picture of my son's hands with the leaves, the 3 colorful leaves, that's all I saw. So therefore, that became the story. With these portraits, all you see is this one has more things in it, but you see her. There's nothing distracting other than the food down below. So there's a story to everything that you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken the picture. You know that story, but when people look at it, they're going to interpret what they see. And if you're only there to talk to them about it, you know, they have their own interpretation.
Wow. And I was also wondering, this one's mainly about the camera.
Sure.
Is the actual, like, the camera, like, difficult to use?
Is a good camera, you said a good camera?
Yeah, is a good camera difficult to use rather than, this is to most of, like, the folks at home, like, which camera quality do you think is better for beginners? Just
like anything else, if you don't read your manual, you don't educate yourself on the tools that you use, and whether that's a camera, a video camera, or a hand tool. You got to read the manual. You got to get familiar with your camera. You got to understand its capabilities, and that way you can then utilize all of the capabilities or most of the capabilities to capture what you want. Because when I first began, I didn't read the manual, and I'm out there and I'm fumbling and I'm like, well, geez, and I'd ask hey, well, how do you do this? And that's so important. Self-education, learning how to do things, learning the tools, so that way when you're out there, you don't have to go like this. You can go, okay, yeah, and you go right there, and then you can capture that moment that you're trying to capture, because once it's gone, it's gone. And it's funny, when I'm out shooting and I take too long or something happens and I get mad, and my 2 buddies say, oh, don't worry, you'll get another chance. And I'm like, no, I won't. I won't get that same chance that I just missed. It's gone. I may get another chance to take a picture, but it won't be the one I saw that I really wanted. So learn your equipment. It's so important. Learn your equipment. And now mirrorless cameras, they're very light. They're wonderful because they have a touch screen on the back. And you can manipulate the camera, as I try to do it backwards. You can manipulate the camera. These are all the settings right here. So I can change the ISO, the focal point, the white balance, all those things from right back here, where before I had to I had to push the information button, then go through and then find it. That's a lot of time. So digital technology has evolved so much that it's a great tool. Mirrorless cameras are great, and they're lighter because if you're out there taking pictures and you're out there for a long time, you just get heavy.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Thank you for the great questions.
Hi. I'm Sophia.
How you doing, Sophia?
I'm doing good. And my question is, do you find it hard sometimes to take photos of anything? Like, is it sometimes hard to take a photo of an animal or something like that?
When you say hard, hard in the sense that I'm trying to catch a specific image, or hard because I don't feel like doing it?
Specific image.
It can be challenging. You have to be attention. You have to pay attention all the time. You got to be alert, looking around. And one thing that a fellow photographer told me, shared with me one time when I was out, he said, everybody shoots what's in front of them. When you do that, turn around. See what's behind you. No one captures what's behind them. They always what's in front. And I've gotten some of the best images by turning around. And I was up at Pemaquid, which is a lighthouse up in Maine. And the setting is you have the lighthouse, and it's on these rocks that are beautiful. They just run in a straight line with grooves and everything. And I'm taking pictures. We're both taking pictures of the lighthouse. And then that fleeting thought came to me about turning around. I turned around, and there was in the walk was a little gully with water, seawater, that had collected from the waves the night before. And there was a beautiful reflection in that water. And I got the image. And I liked that image more than all the images I took of that lighthouse. And I was the only one that had it. So you have to pay attention. You have to be mindful. You have to remember why you're there. And I would have a list in your mind. You don't have to write it down, but in your mind of what you want to capture. So that way, because things go by so fast and you're talking, or I usually go off by myself and figure out what I want to take, but you can forget. And then you're on your way home and say, oh man, I forgot to take that picture. I wanted to do this. So you got to do, it's easy, but you got to do your work. You got to do your homework. You got to know your camera. You got to know the lenses, the settings, and you have to have an idea of what you want to take. So that way you can check it off mentally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, I don't know if I said my name. I'm Sammy. I'm new. I'm really enjoying this. And it seems like you take a lot of photos. Mm-hmm. But out of all the photos that you've ever taken, is there one that you like the most? Or do you have favorites?
I do have favorites. And that's an awesome question because I take so many. Two of my favorites is this one here because it's of my mother, and it was the first one that I took. This one right here. My mom's name is Ocean Sunrise, and she's a Nipmuc elder. The Nipmuc people, when I didn't go into this, our ancestral homeland was central and western Massachusetts, parts of northern Rhode Island and western Connecticut. So that was our ancestral homeland. We were the cultural stewards before European contact. The Nipmucs, my band was in the Grafton area, Webster area. So when you talk about favorites today, I have some pictures of snowy owls that I've taken, barred owls that I've taken. But the other one that I like the most is one of my favorites, is this one. And this one is of Deshaun Tall Hair Red Deer. He's a Nipmuc apprentice. And basically, he works with his uncle, who is Andre Strong Bearheart, who we were fortunate enough to do an interview several months ago. And why I like this image is because most of the images that I take, Native people we're very proud and we stand strong. And this one is is almost, I call it like fine art. It's the way that it's very thoughtful, and it looks like, and what he's doing is he's paying homage to his ancestors. He's looking at the ground. So he's paying homage to his ancestors. And he has the paddle, which Nipmucks, we are the freshwater people. And the water is what we're known for. And that's symbolic with the paddle. So this would be one of my other favorite images that I've taken in my series, and I have a lot.
That's great. Thanks.
You're welcome. So a tradition of Native people is that we gift things, and I have here some red-tailed hawk feathers that I'd like to have. I'll pass them around, and you take the one that you want as in remembrance of this experience. And I would just ask that you take care of it, because a red-tailed hawk gave its life. What I do is when I find red-tailed hawks on the side of the road because they either are hit by cars or they run into a car chasing their prey, they die. And 9 times out of 10, they stay there and cars just run them over, or they rot or what have you. And I pick them up, and I take them and I give them a proper burial on their journey. And I thank them because I take some of their feathers in thanks so that they can live on with other people and then on this earth. So you can take a feather and yeah,
Wow.
Look at the one. And if you want to take a couple, that's okay.
I think I'll go with this one.
And as I say, when I do things like this, I always have my feather. It's like, never forget why you started. Because sometimes it gets tough, or you get distracted. And don't be shy. If you want to dig in there to get the best one, or one that, I won't say the best one, but the one that calls your name. And always remember, nothing's perfect, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure talking with you all and spending and sharing your time. I hope that this experience has broadened your horizons, help you to look at the world in a renewed way. And hopefully some of the things that we talked about, you'll remember, and if it helps you, great. And I always say or think that, always listen. You don't have to do what they say to you, but take the things, walk away, and use the things that you think are pertinent and that can help you. And that's how you grow.
Thank you so much, Scott Stronghawk.
Thank you for inviting me and sharing your time with your classmates, your schoolmates. It was a great experience for me.
And thank you for watching this episode of Marlborough Junior Reporters.